Three men stood at the same cross. They each wrote down what they saw. Once you see how their accounts actually differ, this story will hit completely differently. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all cover the crucifixion, but each one leaves out details that the other includes. Today, I want to walk you through each one, why they differ, and why that actually makes this story more trustworthy, not less. Mark's account. Quick context first, the crucifixion wasn't just an execution. It was Rome's most degrading punishment, reserved for slaves and rebels. And it was done publicly to always terrify people into submission. This is the most humiliating death that occurred in the ancient world. That matters because Christians are claiming that God died this way. Mark's gospel was likely written first, so this is the raw account that everybody else builds from. Mark 15 verse 33 to 39 tells us, "And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness all over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, 'Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani.'" I hope I pronounced that right. But what that means is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "Behold, is he calling out to Elijah?" And someone ran and got a sponge and filled it with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down." And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtains of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. And when the centurion who was facing him saw him in this way, he breathed his last and said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." Darkness falls from noon to 3, and Jesus cries out. That is the rawest line in this whole story. They put vinegar on a sponge. He breathed his last. The temple veil torn from top to bottom. And the centurion, watching how he died, had made his confession. Let's just sit in that darkness for a second before we move on. This is bleak on purpose. It was the moment that God had died, that the world came to a halt. The sun stopped shining because the Son of God had just died for all of Rome to see and had saved us from our own transgressions. How great and glorious is he? Now, Matthew tells us the same core story, but he adds to it something that nobody else does. Matthew 27 verses 45 to 54 tell us this. "Now, from the 6th hour, there was darkness all over the land until the 9th hour." Same thing there. "And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, 'Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?' That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Still the same up to this point. And some of the bystanders heard it and said, "This man is calling out to Elijah." And one of them ran up at once and put sour wine on a stick and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us wait and see if Elijah will come down to save him." And Jesus cried out with a loud voice again and yielded his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split, and the tombs also opened. And many of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after the resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him watching over Jesus saw the earthquake and saw what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this is the Son of God." Same darkness, same cry, same vinegar, but then an earthquake. Rocks split, tombs open, dead saints are walking along the living, and went into Jerusalem after Jesus rises. Here's why. Matthew is writing to a Jewish audience that is obsessed with fulfilling prophecy, and especially how Jesus does it. The darkness echoes the prophet Amos, judgment. The earthquake and open graves are not just special effects. Matthew is saying this is the hinge point of all of history, and he's saying this specifically to a Jewish audience. We can understand that that is the hinge point in history. If we're not Jewish, that's whenever Jesus died, whenever we were able to give ourselves up and surrender to him. But for Jewish people, this was fulfilling a major prophecy for them. Notice too, the centurion and his guards are filled with awe before they confess. Terror turned into worship. We're all called to fear God, but it is so incredible to be able to worship such a perfect and loving God. Now we're going to dive into Luke's angle. He tells the story very well, of course, but also very emotionally. Alrighty, Luke 23 verses 32 to 46. "Two others who were criminals were led with him to be put to death. And when they came to the place that is called the skull, there they crucified him and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And they cast lots to divide his garments. And people stood by, watching, but the rulers scoffed, saying, He saved others, let him save himself, if he truly is Christ of God, the chosen one. The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, and saying, If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself. There was also an inscription over him, This is the King of the Jews. One of the criminals that were crucified with him railed at him, saying, Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due penalties for our injustice. But this man has done nothing wrong. And he said, Jesus, remember me when you go into your kingdom. And he said, Truly, truly, I say to you, you will be with me in paradise. It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness all over the land until the 9th hour, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, with a loud voice, cried out, Father, I commit my spirit into your hand. And having said this, he breathed his last. 2 criminals crucified with him, and Luke records something that no other gospel records. Jesus forgiving the very people that were mocking him, that put him up on that cross. And then one of the criminals asks him to remember him, and Jesus tells him, You will be with me in paradise. A dying man who did absolutely nothing to earn it was saved in a single moment. And Luke's version isn't a cry of abandonment, no, but it is a cry of surrendering of the Spirit. Here's why only Luke's gospel records this. His gospel is all about the outsiders being welcomed in. The thief on the cross is the capstone of that theme. And his centurion doesn't even call Jesus Son of God. No, he worships and praises him. He even calls him innocent. Now, all these stories are different. They all have different emphasis, different characteristics, different perspectives, and they're all so deep and meaningful. But today, the focus is in Luke. So here's the tension that people bring up. Matthew and Mark have different tellings of the same story, of Jesus crying out in abandonment. But Luke calls him out crying in a peaceful surrender. Different last words, different centurion quotes. Now, is this a contradiction? No. Ancient biography did not exist like a court manuscript. These writers all selected real material from different perspectives to convey the same story. Think of it like this. 4 people are describing the same wedding. The officiant remembers the vows. The mother remembers the dress. All are true and they don't contradict one another. So I would take a look at which one you and your heart and your being and your soul need today. If you're carrying guilt, the thief on the cross is for you. He did nothing to earn it, but God loved him, and God forgave him and wiped him clean and welcomed him into heaven. All he had to do was ask. If you're feeling forgotten by God, Jesus already went there, and God pulled him out of that and saved him. Maybe not in the way me or you would expect to be saved, and that's often how God works, but it is always the best thing for you. So trust in God. And if you need to feel the weight of what actually happened, think about the earthquake, the sun turning dark, the veil torn in two. These are super incredible, powerful things that happened whenever the Son of God died for us. This is the kind of deep dive I want to do every week, where I learn something new or tell you something that I already knew, and we dive into it together. If this has helped you, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another one. And let me know what you think in the comments, maybe ideas you have, or things like that. I love hearing from you guys. So, God bless, and remember that Jesus loves you. Go in peace.